I was broke. And I remember looking up, and it was almost like I felt like this wasn't a reality, the world I was in, that I had a choice to make, like that it was almost a game. I don't know how to explain it. And I got angry. And that's just what I needed, because that anger really propelled me to decide that no matter what happens to me, I'm not leaving my family and my children, but I'm not giving up. It was such an anger of my life is not a game. Like,
Mhm.
what are we doing here?
Welcome to the Light the Day podcast, where we explore spiritually transformative experiences. I'm your host, Julie Clough, and I have on the show today Kelly Vicario. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, Julie. Thank you for having me on. I'm real excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here. Kelly has been my mediumship teacher for the last several months, and I was excited for her to share her own experiences of how she got here. We're going to go back and dig into all that, but first, will you introduce yourself and just share a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Kelly Vicario, and I am a medium. I am a teacher, instructor, and a published author. And none of these things are things that I ever thought would happen to me in my life. So it's really exciting to have the opportunity to really tell people my story, because I think it resonates with a lot of people and their experiences through their lifetime, and what to expect to not expect will happen.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's a fun life, and
It is a
I'm glad I'm here to share it.
I'm glad you're here to share it too, because it's just been a delight to get to know you this past year. So
Thank
share a
you.
little bit about where things kind of started, because it's been a little bit of a rocky road for you.
Absolutely. I mean, I can start. Well, let me start by just talking about my childhood. I was a middle child, sandwiched between an older sister and a younger brother. And I think a lot of times I tried to like fight for attention, as the middle child would do. And it's funny, my mother always called me silly and a simpleton. Like, that was something she always called me. And it never offended me, because I knew when she'd say it, it was with such love and admiration for my personality and the way that I saw life. And I was always a very happy child. I had a very blessed to have two fantastic parents who are still with me. Um, and a wonderful childhood. I have really nothing to complain about. And it's funny how my life would take a turn as an adult. But going back as a young child, I seemed to always be intuitive. I was one of those friends that you would go to confide in, and to tell secrets, or tell your worries and concerns. And for some reason, I seemed to know the right thing to say. I think it was my empathy, and now learning being that I was an empath. Um, that's why people were attracted to me, and it seemed like I said the right thing all the time. And my parents would tease me about my friends coming to me and telling me their parents are divorced, and what do I do? And me giving this profound advice out of the air, because I have nothing to back it up. So it
Well,
was always really funny that, oh, Kelly's, and they just let me do my thing and be quirky and
and
fun.
it's funny that your mom called you a simpleton, and yet you had so much wisdom for your friends.
Right. That's the funny part. That's the funny part. So I think really what changed for me was about the time I conceived. And I think I always knew that I was intuitive, like I just knowing things as a child, having very vivid dreams, always fascinated with mediumship and psychic abilities. It was just something I was gravitated to. Maybe it's because I'm a Scorpio and I'm born October 29th, so close to Halloween. I don't know. Um, but it was always something that I truly found fascinating, but never expected the depression and the anxiety, because even though I feel like now looking back, there was some solid connections with spirit people when I was young. I don't think I ever really thought too much about it until I was older and I experienced what I experienced.
That makes sense. That
Yeah.
makes sense. So did you say you were expecting your first child?
So I was expecting my first child, and that came with a little bit of um, issues, not with me getting pregnant, but with people around me. I always felt like I needed to fix people.
Mm,
I almost like I couldn't be settled or feel good unless everybody was around me was feeling good. I still have to stop myself from doing that now, knowing it's everyone else has their journey and realizing that now, but I was the fixer. So prior to my conception of my daughter, I had my husband who got ill, and we didn't know what was going on with him, whether it was cancer. He was running through a bunch of tests, and being a nervous person that he is, and me being grounded and supportive, I'm taking on all of his anxiety and I'm trying to support him. Along with that, I have my best friend getting married who gets left at the altar in her wedding dress.
wow.
Now, I did write a book, and this is all in this book
Yes.
because I think it's important for people to understand um, being an empath and how you take on so many people's emotions and not realizing that they're not your emotions, but someone else's emotions.
Yeah.
At the time of conception, almost at the exact time of conceiving, I went into a deep depression and anxiety. And it was just a feeling that I can't really explain because I never knew what depression was. I never knew what anxiety was. So to me, this was completely foreign and very upsetting. And no one around me had this experience.
Mm,
So I felt very lonely. Um, and I went weeks with this upsetment and thinking, okay, well, it has to do with my husband and has to do with my girlfriend who I'm trying to get her through this crisis, which it probably had something to do with that too. But with that combination, it was a perfect storm with me conceiving. And I
right.
think my hormones went, phew, and I really struggled to figure out what was going on with me. And then when I was told I was pregnant, which again is written in a book, which is an experience of me going to the emergency room because I am having a heart attack, panic attack. I don't know what's going on with me. And they were telling me, you're almost pregnant. I'm
You're
like, well,
almost pregnant. I remember
yeah.
that.
How are you almost pregnant? That seemed to explain a lot logically to me. Like that's what's going on is I'm pregnant and I'm hormonal. But no one I ever knew went through what I went through with not being able to sleep, insomnia for months, hardly being able to eat, um, the negative thoughts, the intrusive thoughts, everything was an issue. I could go on, I could spend an hour just telling you about that experience, but it was the worst experience in my life. Um, and when it should have been the most beautiful time of my life. So it was robbed. I was robbed from that experience. And when I came through it the other side with a healthy child, then taking medication and getting okay, I thought, oh, phew, I'm over. I'm over it. It's all done.
Well,
But
because at that point you're still looking at, oh, it's the hormonal shifts. This is what happened. I just need to get. But what I'm hearing is that you're absorbing all this energy that's around you from your husband's illness and his anxiety over his illness, and your friend's depression and challenges with being left at the altar, which, two very, very overwhelming experiences. And
Yeah.
as an empath, and especially an unaware empath, you're absorbing all of that in an effort to help. It's like an empath will absorb all that, thinking, if I absorb all this, now, not consciously, but
Right. Because
unconsciously. Yeah.
I didn't know that I was an empath. I just knew I was a sensitive person.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be teased because I was so sensitive, you know? So I just wanted to help people. But yeah, I mean, that was the beginning when I look back at what happened later on down the line, that was actually the beginning of what my transformation, if I want to call it that. I think it comes in parts, in
I
shifts.
believe that too. Mm-hmm.
So that was the beginning of my first shift with understanding what anxiety, doom, gloom, depression. It was hell. I know what hell feels like because I lived it.
Mm-hmm.
And come to find out I'm going to live it 3 or 4 more times in my lifetime to get me to where I am now. So, Julie, you tell me where you want me to go in the timeline at this point.
Well, just share with us the next, kind of the next couple of things that happened that got you to the place where you started to recognize what was happening.
So I would say I would go through the next 10 years fine. I had a son, I had another child. No problem with pregnancy, no postpartum, prepartum, anything with my son. So of course I'm thinking I'm over this. And God always has a plan. And my husband and I decide that we're going to open up a preschool. And with the stress of running a household, running a school with 26 teachers and 105 students and 2 children at home, things had start to roll and start to happen. And I believe that I started to really open up spiritually. And I would go through these ups and downs with, bouts of 4 months of depression, and then I'm okay. And then I would go on medication, and then I would come off of it and I would go again. Um, and it was a roller coaster ride to the point where I'm going to bring you to the most important transformative time. Um, I remember that it was really affecting my family as well as myself, and trying to keep myself together and trying to be professional and trying to keep a, a face on that was not my true feeling was very difficult. I got to a breaking point. And I remember, having a lot of guilt over how I felt, not understanding why. And I had a point where, I had my young daughter trying to get me out of bed and coax me out of bed and brush my hair and get me together. And that just was a whole nother level of guilt.
Mm.
Um, and I remember being at a dinner party with my husband and our friends, and I hearing them talk around the table and laughing, and I'm trying to act like I'm involved in the conversation, but I'm in my own world, I'm in my own head. And depression, anxiety is very isolating, but and a very selfish. I don't know if you call it a disease, disorder, whatever, because you can only care about what's going on in you because you don't have the capacity to love the things you used to love and be the person you used to be because you're trying so hard to get back to who you really were.
Mm.
And I remember leaving that party without my husband. I said, I'm not feeling good. I want to go home. My kids were out. And I remember crying on the way home and dragging myself up a flight of steps, not understanding why I'm going through this.
Mm-hmm.
I have a beautiful family, a wonderful husband, a wonderful career, business. I have no reason logically to be going through what I'm going through. And I decided that night in my bedroom, I could just see it. And I don't even know how to explain it to you guys, but I had made the decision that I was going to plan to take my life. And
Mm,
this wasn't the first time that I had thought about it, but it was the last time that I was going to put a plan together. And I would never have allowed myself to even get to that point of a thought. I would stop myself because I knew once I would start that, I don't know how I would ever stop it. And it would be something that would grow in my mind. But that night was the decision that I was going to start to make the plan to take my life.
mm,
And I remember being so angry with God and disappointed, and really I was a very faith driven person, and that's what really I that's how I survived. But that night I lost my faith. And it was a decision that I felt like maybe I really shouldn't be here. Maybe my life's plan is to take my life.
mm,
And the weird thing, Julie, is I don't know how to explain this because I don't know that there's words for it. But it was like in my bedroom, I felt the presence of something beautiful and great and blessed, like God, and something dark and horrible. And you might want to say the devil, although I don't know that I believe in that. But it was a darkness, it was a heaviness. And I
mhm,
decided I'm going here
mm,
because this doesn't love me anymore. So
mm,
it was a separation of where I was in my life and deciding that maybe this is the path I need to be. And then I remember being hysterical and just pounding my fist on the ground and saying, God, I need you. I
mm.
need you now. I need you now more than anything. You need to save me. And I don't think I've ever said that in all the
Wow,
years that I had been going through that.
wow.
I was broke. And I remember looking up, and it was almost like I felt like this wasn't a reality, the world I was in, that I had a choice to make, like that it was almost a game. I don't know how to explain it. And I got angry. And
Mm.
that's just what I needed because that anger really propelled me to decide that no matter what happens to me, I'm not leaving my family and my children. And I remember looking at that bed that I call a tomb at that point because that's where I lived, unless I had to get up and go to work, and then I got right back in that bed. If God wants me to stay in that tomb, then I will until he calls me home. But I'm not
Mhm,
giving up. It was such an anger of this, my life is not a game. Like,
mhm,
what are we doing here? And from that moment on, things started to change for me. So I want to say that that was the dark night of the soul, if I understand that to be correct. If it, I don't know if there's one night or there's many nights, but I do know that night was the night that changed me. And
It's
that was
almost
the
like
night.
you hit rock bottom
Mhm.
and you're like, this is it. Like, I can't, this is it. And then from that place, you reached out for that divine light that,
Yeah. I was like, you come save me now or I'm gone. Like I'm not doing this again. I cannot continue to hurt the people that I love so much. And in
mm,
saying that, how much hurt would I do and how much damage would I do if I did take my life?
right.
So I don't know what gave me the energy to start fighting, but I fought. And every day got better. And, you know, e- every, it was almost like, I know that I spoke to you guys yesterday about it, but it was like I understood things on a different level. And I started to really open up and research myself, and things started to come to me. When I say I opened up YouTube and things about being an empath would open up, or I would go to the library and a book would fall off the shelf or just be sitting there, that there was something inside of me that said, do this, take this, watch this, explore this. So I was starting to do all that work. And I have to say, at that point, I didn't know that I was an empath. I didn't even know the word, but I was
Right.
starting to feel better. And I started reading more and more books about spirituality and trying to know my faith. And I was a Catholic, um, and then I went to a born again Christian church. I was just really trying to find myself. And then funny enough, I had a reading from a medium, and she said to me, you know, you're an empath. And I said, a what?
Mhm.
And I said, "Can you spell that? Because I have no idea." That's when I really started to research being an empath, and, everything suited me. All the books I read, I said, "This is me." I would tell my mother or father, "This remember this? Doesn't this sound like me?" And it was such a wonderful experience of exploring, that when I got past that exploration and then I knew, I said, "Oh, I'm gonna miss that." But then I moved to another level of
Mm.
exploring and expanding, and I moved forward into meditation, and it was quite a journey. Um,
You opened yourself up with that plea to receive. You opened yourself
yes,
up to receive more and to really seek rather than being in that place of almost like victimhood. This is happening to me. And now you're
right.
looking like, well, what is there something more that I can be doing? Is there something else? And just that opening, just that, what a
Yeah,
brilliant path for you.
and I knew that there was something more, and when I started to go into meditation, I would close my eyes and start seeing my grandparents and think, "Boy, this is fascinating," and it just kind of rolled from there, and asking my teacher at that point, like, "I think I'm seeing people that are passed away," and she said, "You are." Go with it. So then I started doing more research, and then I started giving a little bit of reading here and there, and when I was correct, it blew my mind. And it's just been such a fascinating, fascinating journey for me, and I often look back and I say, if I would have taken my life and I got to those pearly gates, and my guides and inspirers would have said, "Girl, you know what you could have been doing?" I would have been so disappointed, because my life now is just magical. It's just truly a blessing, and it's amazing. And I often say to people, if you go to a door and you're trying to knock it down and push it open and it's not opening, maybe you need to try another door. It's the
Mm,
doors that open up so quickly and easily for you that you need to step through, because we all have guides and inspirers that are on the other side helping us through it. We just have to recognize it.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I just went with faith
that's
from one thing to
beautiful.
another.
Now, I'm curious about, did you feel any resistance to this idea of mediumship? Because it's still it's still not very mainstream. I mean, I think it's more mainstream now than it ever has
Yeah,
been.
I agree.
But I'm sure that when this all happened with you, how many years ago has this been?
12.
12 years ago. I'm sure when all this happened with you that it was even less mainstream. Like, did you feel any resistance to that path?
Well, being the simpleton that I am, which which is a blessing, um, if there was resistance from other people, I didn't see it.
Oh.
So if they thought that I was silly, crazy, whatever, I paid no mind, because I I I was in my own world, and jogging this jogging down this road or riding the trail here, and whatever effect other people wanted to have on me, it didn't stick. And
Mm.
I think I'm pretty blessed because in my mind, my family was very receptive. They didn't push back. They didn't tell me don't do this or this sounds crazy. And I did some pretty crazy things. Now, did they say that behind my back? I don't know, but I don't care. What people say about me is none of my business. I think I've said that before to you guys. So no, I didn't find resistance. At least I didn't feel it. Whether it
Yeah.
was there or not, I don't know.
Yeah. What was your path to going from this place of, because I've had my own experiences with people on the other side showing up, and I'm like, oh, what am I supposed to do with this? Like,
Yeah.
what did that look like, that path from being this, like, oh, this is happening, to now I'm professionally offering services as a medium?
Um, it just unfold. It will unfold naturally. And I'd have to really think back about how did this, no one told me to be afraid. No
Mm,
one told me I couldn't do it. So I didn't think that I couldn't do it. I started to go to meditation and giving people readings in my class, and a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And then one day I think I decided, let me charge $25 and see if somebody will pay for it. And then the person did. And then someone else did. And then they told somebody, and it kind of developed that way. And I would do readings. Out of the woman that I did her meditation classes, she had a little office, and I would I'd give her some money. I would split that $25, and I didn't care about the money. It was just like the fact that somebody liked what I was doing and they were offering money. There needs to be that exchange for sure, that energy exchange, because
yeah,
you as a person need to feel valued. And I understand that, like if I could, I would often say if I could do this for free, I would, but I don't think that's fair to my soul to do that either.
I get that so much. Yes.
Yeah. You know, the universe has to be, it can't be one-sided. Everything needs to have a balance. The universe needs to balance at all times. So when you are giving somebody something, they also need to show you gratitude because it's a figure eight.
Yeah.
The love and the healing you give needs to come back to you as well.
Well, and actually it's interesting because as you say that, it's almost as if those early experiences, those earlier really challenging experiences where you took on so much anxiety and so much depression, it was almost, again, from this unconscious place, you were taking on everybody's stuff, trying to transform it for them unconsciously, and there wasn't balance, and
Right.
that's what put you in this place to begin with. So kudos for
That's a
you for
really that's a
learning
really
that.
good that's a
Yeah.
really good thought, Julie. I never put it that way, but yeah, maybe my life had gotten easier because things became imbalanced. And you're going to go through the different stages of your life where there is imbalance, and there was actually imbalance with the spirit world
Mm-hmm.
where they were taking from me and I had no boundaries, and
Mm,
it was exhausting. So the people in the spirit world are normal people, right? They're just without a body. Um, so when you have to have boundaries, like with the people that you see in your everyday life in your family, you also need to do that with the spirit world. So because you're reminding me of, you know, how the spirit world no longer taps me on the shoulder in the middle of the night,
mm,
scares me, sits on the end of my bed, that type of thing.
mhm.
Um, And if I didn't understand that I needed to give them boundaries and give them an outlet though too, like give them an opportunity to talk to me, I would be walking around talking to people left and right and not being able to conduct myself as a human. You need to have a normal human life and
So what
have the
does
right.
that look like practically? What does that look like for you? As you talk about having boundaries and not having them tap you on the shoulder in the middle of the night and so forth. What did that look like to create those boundaries? How did you do that? Or, what were some of the decisions that you made in that way?
Um, when people would come to me in the middle of the night, I would say, "Thank you for coming, but I can't talk to you now." And then I would sit in meditation, either with my guides, my inspirers, or just talking to God, and people, listen, I have to have a life. Like we have to have a plan here, have your people, call my people, make an appointment. Because that's really how it works in the spirit world. And they've pretty much listened. Now, does one or two creep through now and again? Yeah, they do. But it's once you with the universe and with the people in the spirit, once you are opened, if you'd ever noticed, when you're open to giving a particular type of information through mediumship, you'll get everybody that had a heart attack,
Mm,
right? You'll get everybody that had lost a child. It seems like you'll do a reading after reading, and it's all because, but it's because they see that you know how to communicate that information correctly, efficiently, and with respect.
mm,
So you'll see patterns when you go through your mediumship and when you're communicating with spirit, and that's so normal. So if I would say, yes, everyone come to me in the middle of the night, I'm welcoming your messages, I'm welcoming your contact. I'd have a bedroom full of 50 people every night. My husband
yeah.
would be wondering what was going on. No,
Yeah,
but you have to put that out there.
we see these mediums that do TV shows, and of course a lot, there's a lot of editing, and they're walking
Mhm.
down the street and giving random readings to people walking on the street, and I'm guessing that that is not part of your protocol as much any or
I have done that in the beginning. I have to confess, but I have come to the understanding that it could be intrusive to the person that is still living. If they don't choose to speak to the person that I have in the spirit world. One thing that I've understood through my teachings with Mavis and Jean is that we work for the spirit world. We're not working for the people here. We're giving them a voice like you would if you were someone that works with the handicapped. You're giving them, you are the middleman. You're giving them your hands, your feet, your voice. And that's what you're doing as a medium. So I am working for the spirit world. And let me go back to that question because I went off on a tangent. If we're going back to the boundaries thing, it's important to safeguard yourself and to understand that you are working for the spirit world, but you also need to respect the people that you're talking to here in the physical world. So I've learned through my mentors that you could be opening up Pandora's box if
mm,
you're bringing through an abusive spouse or an abusive father, and that person didn't ask for it. They're just walking down the street, you know?
mm,
So when I understood that, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense because in my mind, I'd be like, yeah, if someone came up to me and they said my grandmother, they had this one or that one, I would be very open to hearing any information, but not everybody has had the same life experiences. So you
right.
have to respect that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And
I
I've
can't
I've
say that I
had that
didn't do it.
several yeah, I've had that several times where people have come up to me and they said, "There's two children with you. Can I share a message?" And I'm like, "Sure." So,
Yeah.
and when that first began happening, I was a little taken aback by that because I didn't understand any of this.
Yeah.
Wasn't part of my experiences. But I've come to kind of expect it now a little bit.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
doesn't happen all the time, but it has happened a handful of times. So yeah, I can see how that would be a little
Yeah. And what if you're
challenging.
a person that doesn't have that belief system?
Yeah,
Or, you know, you're conditioned to feel like if anybody comes from the unseen world, it's an evil thing.
right.
You just don't know,
Yeah,
so I no longer do that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And will you speak for just a moment about ethical mediumship and what that means? Because like in any profession, there's going to be people who aren't ethical in their profession. So share a little bit about what that means to you.
You know, you wanna be the best representation of the people that you represent. And when you're in any profession, ethics are so important, whether you're a doctor or a therapist, and it shouldn't be any different because you can't see your client because they're not here in the physical. So it's really important to be, I feel, to be an evidential medium because that shows evidence that you really truly have the person in spirit coming through with undeniable evidence that this is who they are. And with that also comes a lot of different caveats too. So, but I'll just leave it at that. Um, it's one thing that I remember Mavis saying, which made so much sense, and I never thought about it because we are our clients, being mediums, are the people in spirit. We sometimes take that for granted because we can't see their reaction or there's no repercussion. But once we get to the spirit world, Mavis said, there's repercussions. Mavis would say, I don't ever want to be unethical. And someone in the spirit world come up to me when I go there to the spirit world and them saying, you took my name in vain. You misrepresented me. Why did you tell that person something that I didn't say? So that struck a chord with me
Mm,
because I do no harm here or do no harm there. That's my motto. And I think it's really important that when you do sit down with a medium, you do try to find a medium that has the highest moral and ethics. And they should understand that doing this work is for their soul, for your soul, and the soul of the spirit person. It's a three-way street. And the person that can dedicate their time and try to get through accurate information um, is the person that I would want sitting in front of me and giving me a reading.
yeah.
That's why we practice the evidential mediumship. A medium can come through and say, Julie, I have your grandmother here, and she's a lovely woman, and she tells me how much she loves you, and she's talking about X, Y, and Z, and but she's putting words in this woman's mouth. Like, you don't know that this is actually your grandmother unless your grandmother says, hey, Julie, it's me. Remember the piano? Remember the holidays? That type of thing.
Mhm.
So that's where I think you have to strive to be as evidential and as ethical as you can because you don't want to do harm in either
Right.
worlds.
Right. And I do want to point out, you've mentioned Mavis a couple of times. You're referring to Mavis
Yes.
Pittilla, who has passed and has had that conversation with the people that she has brought through. So just to mention who you're referring to, who was
Yes.
your teacher, who was your instructor, and then you're an authorized teacher in her program.
Yeah, so
And
it's the Mavis Pittilla and Jean Else. Jean is Mavis's partner who is still with us. And right before Mavis passed, I think 2 years prior, I was with Mavis about 5 years training. I was in her mentorship program, and then they offered a teaching the teachers program, is what they called it. And they only selected a couple people to go through with the program. I think we might have only 15 teachers who have actually trained with Mavis and Jean,
mhm,
um, and went through the certification and being able to teach the way that Mavis taught us, which I
yeah,
think was
yeah,
amazing. It was the best training I could have ever asked for.
yeah. And I love that you not only discovered your own empathic gifts, but then you also went to you studied, is because we can have the gifts. It's just like with, again, with any profession, somebody can be a gifted basketball player, but they're
Mhm.
not going to develop into a elite athlete without the coach, without the direction, without the training
Practice.
and the
Yes.
practice, right? Exactly. So it's just like with any profession. It's not just something that you have a gift for it and you just go out there and practice it. It's a study process as well. Share with
Yeah.
us a little bit about what what you do today. Like, what is your how do you practice mediumship? What are you working on today?
Okay, so actually, I started a couple years ago along with my partner. We would do demonstrations and go to people's homes of 10 to 15 people and do some demonstrations there. Um, I have worked in churches in England and have done demonstrations in churches of 50 people. Uh, Always loved that. That it's funny because what you think you're going to do is, God laughs and says, "No, that's not the plan. That's not the plan." Never planned on being a medium as fascinated as I was with the whole thing. I never thought I could do it. So I went to doing one-on-one readings, and then doing what we call demonstrations or platform reading. And I thought, I'll never get up in front of people. That will not be me. No. Then I started doing it and I loved it. Um, so then I was doing that and also some private readings. And then with the teaching of the teacher program, I thought, I never wanted to be a teacher. Now I run a preschool. I have enough responsibility. I don't need to be a teacher teaching mediumship. And Mavis said to me, "You are going to, and you are going to love it." And I thought, I don't think so. But she was right. She was right. So I really enjoy right now teaching. I'm teaching one of the mentorship programs, or circles rather, for the shift program. And then I have my own mentorship on the side for me, which actually combines Mavis's teachings as well as my teachings and understanding. So it's a combination. Mavis would never say, "I want you to be the same as me. I don't want you to be a duplicate Mavis Pittilla. I want you to understand my teachings, but you be Kelly Vicario." So,
Yeah, I love
yeah, so
that.
that's what I'm
I
doing
love
now.
that. One question that I like to ask all my guests is, what are some of the spiritual practices that you practice today on a daily or weekly basis that help you stay connected?
I think always communicating and understanding that the spirit world is always around me and having the faith and true faith and understanding that they're here. I don't have any regular practices as far as anymore. I kind of grew out of that as far as like everyday meditating or, getting in the power or, those type of things. I think that that's wonderful. And I think everybody needs to begin at some point. Where I am in my development with my mediumship, I talk to my guides and inspirers every day, all day long, when I'm doing normal things, doing the dishes, in the shower, driving my car. It's just a normal conversation that I'm having with people, whether they're your loved ones or they're my guides and my inspirers. And, I feel like I definitely get the answers. One thing that I did ask them is when I ask for things, and I pray for things, or I need something to happen in my life, whether it for me or for someone else, and it does happen, please let me be aware and have the clarity that it had happened.
Mm,
Because getting a gift isn't a gift until you realize you've gotten it and you received it. So a lot of times we ask for things in life and we get them, whether it's the next day or a month later, and we don't realize.
mm,
And it might be take a moment to say, I asked for that. Oh, I can't believe I got that because I remember asking for that. And I think, I want to say thank you. Please do your best to let me recognize that I've received the blessings and the gifts that I had asked for. So that's one thing gratitude is definitely something that's high on my list.
yeah, that's wonderful. Gratitude is so important. I love that. So share with us how people can connect with you. Where's a good place for people to connect with you?
Sure. So you can connect with me on my website, which is kellyvicario.com. It's KELLYV as in Victor, ICARIO.com. You can connect to me on my website, or I do have a Facebook page, which is Kelly Vicario Spiritual Medium. So be happy to contact you and give you any information you might need.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here today. What a delight to hear your story. I've actually read your book twice.
Oh,
I read it when I first met you, and then something happened recently, and I thought, oh, I need to read that again. I want to get connected with that story again. So I ended up reading it again. So,
and, well, thank you for saying that. And that too was a sign like that things were supposed to go in that direction. I wrote, published and printed that book within 1 year.
wow.
And that is pretty quick for somebody. And I knew it was spirit led. It was something I never thought I would do. And it got done. And that's when you have that gratitude, like, thank you. I mean, I never thought that would ever happen. So, but
Yes, beautiful. And you can find her book on her website. She does use a pen name, so it's not under her name. So
it's Victoria K. It's called A Cursed Blessing, My Empathic Journey. And it's written by Victoria K., which is my pen name. So, and it's available on Amazon.
awesome.
And I hope that it helps and heals people, because it was certainly a labor of love. So
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you so much, Kelly.
thank you. Thank you for having me on, Julie.